Thank you. Thank you. So I appreciate not having to MC. When you speak, you don't have to introduce yourself, which is helpful. So the biggest thing I want to go into right away is that status quo is something that we all know exists, but we very rarely actually recognize it. And what I mean by that is, rarely are you going to look at your friend and say, hey, it is normal in here, right? No one ever recognizes it. Instead, there needs to be an extreme, either too hot, too cold, too big, too small, something that we recognize. Now, what happens is there's people throughout society and throughout history that we would say that we look up to. People like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, influencers, Gandhi, Jesus, people who actually have pushed the needle somewhere. Or there's businesses, right? You have Uber, Airbnb, Netflix. You know, there's multiple businesses that have this same concept. And what do they have in common? What does Gandhi have in common with Uber or Jesus and Airbnb? Well, what it is that they've all been disruptors. And what disruptors do is they see the status quo, and instead of it just being the normal, it's the starting point. And what happens is disruptors kind of get a bad rep unless you're the disruptor. But what happens is disruptors bring growth to industries. Now, the story I'm going to tell you is about a time where I got asked a question by one of the members of one of my businesses. It's called Local Vendors Coalition. And LVC has a very simple mission, and that is we help local farmers work with local purchasers to create a sustainable food system. That's it. And the member came up to me and asked me, he said, Matt, what you're doing works, but how did you get the timing right? And I looked at him and gave him some sales pitch, but I really had no idea what I even said or what the real answer was. But after some time, I went home, thought about it, and this is what I found. I found that the best way to describe it is by using gears. And for those of you who don't know how gears work, one gear starts, which turns another gear, which turns another gear, right? We've learned this back where there's toys you play with, there's 3-year-olds that play with it. But it's a simple concept. So what I'm going to do is I want to get started with this, and this is the A gear. We're going to do this very simple. And I made a little cheat sheet to the top left, but every single industry starts with an original idea, an original concept, or an original product. Now, I used Uber as an example for those of you who don't understand the agricultural industry, because it's a little more regular. Uber, the first one was the need for transportation, whereas obviously agriculture is the need for food. Well, see, what happens is A starts moving. And as A moves, it's individuals working for themselves. People used to farm so that they could eat. Well, what happened was their neighbor saw that one person was farming a lot better than the other person and had other things to do. So that neighbor asked that other farmer, could you farm for me and I will give you something for that product? That's when the customer comes in. And the customer is going to be the C gear, customer, end user, or support. The customer comes in, and as they're growing, more customers come, but A and C always come together, but once they hit each other, they stop. So something needs to happen. That's where the industry comes in. This is actually the birth of an industry. And when that industry comes in as the B gear to make things actually go smoothly, what will then happen is, as B comes through, B is going to grow, and this opportunist that comes through is going to constantly have them grow, and eventually when it hits the chains, it will not only break the chain, but it will keep growing. And as it's growing, it will force A and C to come together. So the original producer and the consumer will always try to connect. And eventually when they hit, that is when a disruptor comes in, because the industry is now stagnant. And you see some of the most mature industries right now having this issue where they're constantly trying to do sales or some type of product to get themselves going, when all it really needs is a disruptor to come in and to actually split them. And when that little gear comes in, no matter how small it is, it will bring the industry back around, having all three parties moving, and now it's actually balanced out. So the question that we ask you guys as you're coming into this is, how do you actually make sure that you're either in front of it or a part of it? See, this is a formula that I found worked in my business, so I went and did some research. And I found over 100 different other disruptors throughout history that have actually gone through the same formula. Here they are. Every single one of these, the timing has been exactly like this. So and I could explain to them later if you see one you want to know about, but we don't have time to go through all of them. This right here is the formula that you want. Right here, these 3 gears is when a disruptor needs to come into an industry. You have A, which is the original idea or the original producer. You have C, which is the consumer or the end user. And what's happening is the industry is controlling the 2 most important parts of the entire cycle. And they will eventually force together. You see this happen with Uber, where people don't want to take taxis. You see this happening with Airbnb, where people don't want to stay at hotels. You see this happen in the ag industry, where people go to farmers markets or will actually go to the farm itself. So if you can find this formula, all you need to do is go through and actually be the disruptor, and you'll see how simple it is to put any product or any other concept going through. So the question that I have for you guys is, the first part is how to know when an industry is ready to be disrupted, but how do you know when your industry is going to be disrupted? For example, which one of the gears are you? Are you the producer? Are you the consumer? Or are you the industry that thinks you're fat and lucky that's about to get disrupted? See, disruptors come whether you're ready for it or not. And you have one of 3 options. You can be the disruptor, you can need the disruptor, or you can get disrupted. So whichever gear you are, I won't judge you, but what I will ask you is please do not be surprised if this comes into your industry. Thank you.